Desire is the spark of creation. It is the quiet fire that begins everything great, the seed of every empire, the whisper behind every revolution, the thought that turns ordinary men into immortals. Every invention, every fortune, every act of greatness began with one truth. Someone times wanted, times it enough. But desire, on its own, is fragile. It burns bright, then fades in the winds of fear, doubt, and delay. That's why most never rise above mediocrity. Their desires never evolve into decisions. They talk about what they want, but they never become who it requires. To turn desire into destiny, you must make a sacred shift from wishing to working, from hoping to believing, from wanting to times becoming. Asterisk. Desire is the starting point, but destiny demands transformation. It demands that you take your longing and forge it into purpose, that you take the invisible and make it visible, that you take the dream that lives only in your heart and build it with your hands, your faith, your discipline, your sacrifice. That's how it happens. That's how the unseen becomes real. Because destiny doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you times decide. Asterisk. And the day you decide that your dream will not die, that is the day your destiny begins to live. There is a moment quiet, unassuming, almost invisible, when an idea first enters your mind. It begins as nothing more than a spark, a whisper, a thought that seems too big for the life you're living right now. That moment is sacred, because in that fragile instant, you are being handed the seed of your destiny. Every great empire, every monumental achievement, every revolution that shaped the world began as an invisible desire. Before Edison lit the world, he dreamed of banishing the darkness. Before Ford built his empire, he envisioned motion for every man. Before Disney drew his first mouse, he imagined joy that would outlive him. Desire is the birthplace of creation. But here's the truth most people never understand. Desire alone is not enough. Desire without direction is like fire without oxygen. It flickers, glows for a moment, and dies in silence. You can want, you can wish, you can pray for change all you want. But until you decide to turn that desire into definite purpose, it will remain nothing more than a dream you'll watch pass you by. The world is filled with people who want success, but the universe only moves for those who claim it. You see, between where you are and where you dream to be lies an invisible bridge built from your thoughts, your faith, and your action. That bridge is constructed one decision at a time. Every day you hesitate, the bridge weakens. Every day you act with conviction, it strengthens. And one day, without warning, you'll look back and realize that you've crossed over. Destiny doesn't happen by accident, it's engineered. Napoleon Hill once said, asterisk, the starting point of all achievement is desire. Asterisk. But he didn't mean desire as a fleeting emotion. He meant times white-hot desire, times the kind that consumes you, that keeps you awake at night, that demands to be expressed through action. That kind of desire cannot coexist with excuses. It cannot coexist with doubt. It burns so fiercely that fear has no choice but to retreat. But here's the problem, most people never reach that point. They smother their own flame with disbelief. They talk themselves out of greatness because they cannot yet see the result. They want proof before they believe. But the universal law doesn't work that way. You must first believe, and only then will proof appear. Every successful person, every innovator, every leader, every dreamer who defied the odds learned to see with the mind before they saw with the eyes. Asterisk, they built the vision first, in silence. They constructed their destiny brick by brick, thought by thought, long before anyone else could recognize what was forming. Thomas Edison didn't wait for validation before he invented the light bulb. People laughed at him times 1,000 failed experiments, asterisk. But what they didn't understand was that each failure wasn't a defeat. It was a stepping stone. Because the man who is driven by definite purpose never fails. He simply learns how not to quit. Desire, when purified by persistence, becomes destiny. You can't pray for success and remain the same person. The version of you that desires the goal is not the version of you that will achieve it. There must be a transformation of thought, of habit, of faith. So the question isn't asterisk. Do you want it? Asterisk. The question is asterisk. Are you willing to become who it requires you to be? Asterisk. The man who builds his dream must first build himself. Because destiny does not belong to the lucky. It belongs to the disciplined. And discipline is desire refined through daily sacrifice. When you study the lives of the great, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, the Lincolns, the Jobs, and the Disneys, you realize they all had one thing in common. They were not waiting for the right moment. They created it. They had vision when everyone else had doubt. They moved when everyone else hesitated. They burned with belief when the world called them foolish. That's the kind of desire that bends reality. It begins as a vision, something invisible, something unprovable, but once it takes hold of your mind, it begins to attract the resources, the people, the opportunities needed to make it real. The average person calls this coincidence. The enlightened mind calls at times the law of attraction in motion, asterisk. But it only activates when your thoughts, emotions, and actions align with the same purpose. You can't say you want success and feed your mind failure. You can't claim abundance and think in scarcity. You can't pray for opportunity and refuse to prepare. The universe mirrors your internal state. If you think in limitation, you will live in limitation. If you think in expansion, you will live in expansion. Your mind is not a container, it's a projector. It doesn't store your reality. It creates it. Every thought you hold with emotion imprints upon your subconscious, and that subconscious drives your behavior long before you're even aware of it. That's why the battle for destiny begins in the mind, not in the world. Until your mind believes you deserve it, your actions will never sustain it. You can hustle all you want, work harder than anyone you know, but if deep inside you believe you're unworthy of success, you'll sabotage it the moment it arrives. So before you change your circumstances, you must first change your identity. Who are you becoming asterisk? Every thought you think, every decision you make, every action you take, it's either building or destroying the person you're destined to become. If you want to turn desire into destiny, you must master the inner conversation. Because your mind is always listening. It hears the fear. It hears the excuses. It hears the, I'll do it tomorrow. And it shapes your reality to match your dominant belief. You are both the sculptor and the marble, the thinker and the thought. You can carve greatness or mediocrity, but you cannot blame the chisel. The world doesn't owe you your dream, it owes you nothing. But it will always reflect what you believe you're capable of creating. Asterisk. That's why Napoleon Hill taught the power of times, definiteness of purpose. Asterisk. Because purpose gives form to desire. Without purpose, desire is vapor. It dissipates into thin air. But with purpose, true, burning, soul-level purpose desire becomes a weapon. It cuts through fear, fatigue, and distraction. It becomes unstoppable. So ask yourself, what is your definite purpose? Not what you want for approval, not what you want to impress others, but what you must become to feel alive. That is your destiny calling. And once you answer, there is no turning back. The moment you commit to a purpose greater than comfort, your life begins to reorganize itself around that commitment. You'll notice people drift away, habits dissolve, opportunities appear not by magic but by law. Because your dominant vibration, your inner frequency, begins to change. You're no longer chasing, you're attracting. You're no longer hoping, you're knowing. That's when you step into alignment. That's when the world begins to conspire with you, not against you. And from that moment forward, desire stops being something you feel and becomes something you live. Asterisk. That is the moment desire turns into destiny. Destiny does not answer the call of the impatient. It does not rush to those who demand it on their timeline. It waits for those who become worthy of it. Asterisk. You must understand this truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are. The world mirrors your vibration, your mindset, your inner standard. You cannot hide your true belief from the laws that govern success. You can wear confidence on your face, but if your heart whispers doubt, the world will hear it louder than your words ever could. That is why every master of achievement has spent years refining the inner world before mastering the outer. Henry Ford once said, asterisk, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Asterisk. That statement holds more power than entire libraries of motivational speeches because it defines the essence of transformation. Belief is the seed of destiny. You can't fake it, you can't pretend to believe. Your subconscious knows, the universe knows, and it rewards only the mind that is certain. So, if you wish to turn desire into destiny, you must transform belief from a passing thought into an unshakable conviction. Conviction is not born in comfort, it's forged in resistance. The dreamers who become doers are those who stay standing when life tests their faith. And at times will test you. You'll face days where everything seems to collapse. Days when the dream feels too far away, the struggle too heavy, the silence too long. You'll question whether you were foolish to begin at all. But understand this, that's not life punishing you, that's life preparing you. The universe doesn't deny your desire. It tests the depth of it. When adversity comes, it's asking, asterisk, do you really want this? Asterisk, When rejection comes, it's asking, asterisk, will you stand by your purpose even when it hurts? Asterisk, when everything seems to be falling apart, it's whispering, asterisk, are you ready to rebuild from within? Asterisk. Only those who answer yes, not in words, but in persistence, will see the other side. Every failure is a question. Your perseverance is the answer. Look at Abraham Lincoln, defeated in business, rejected in love, beaten in politics, ridiculed by his peers, and yet he stood firm. Not because success came easily, but because his purpose was stronger than his pain. Destiny doesn't respond to emotion, it responds to persistence. You must keep walking even when no one claps. You must keep believing even when no one else does. Because that's where transformation happens, in the lonely, quiet spaces where most people give up. Most people stop because they mistake delay for denial. But delay is the refining fire of faith. It burns away impatience. It strengthens your will. It forces you to evolve. Edison didn't create the light bulb because he knew how he created it, because he refused to stop trying. 10,000 failed attempts, and not once did he interpret them as failure. He said, asterisk, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Asterisk, that mindset is what turns a dreamer into a creator. Because creators understand something the average person never will. Asterisk, asterisk, failure is information, not identity. Asterisk, asterisk, it teaches, it redirects, it shapes you. Each setback chisels away what's unnecessary, until only the essential remains, the version of you strong enough to carry your destiny. That's why discipline matters more than motivation. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is eternal. Discipline is when your body says no and your spirit says go. It's when the world says stop and your purpose whispers continue. Discipline is the bridge between desire and destiny. It's the reason why some people dream for a lifetime while others build legacies that echo through centuries. Carnegie studied steel not because it was easy, but because he saw something no one else could. Rockefeller built empires not because he sought money alone, but because he pursued mastery. They didn't chase pleasure, they pursued purpose. And in the process, they discovered the greatest truth of all, that success is not about accumulation, but transformation. To turn desire into destiny, you must die to the old self, the one addicted to comfort, validation, and fear. Because destiny cannot live where excuses do. You cannot walk into the future still holding hands with your past. Every day, you must let something die. Laziness, doubt, procrastination, fear. Only then can something greater be born: clarity, discipline, faith, power. The universe doesn't hand over greatness to the hesitant. It reserves it for the bold, the ones who dare to act without guarantees. Because there will never be a perfect moment. The perfect moment is the one you decide to move. Action is the language of belief. You can pray for your dream all you want, but until your feet start moving, heaven remains silent. Faith without action is fantasy. Every vision must be followed by motion. Every desire must express itself through work. But not all work is equal. The mindless worker labors in circles. The conscious creator moves with purpose. Purposeful action is sacred. It's charged with intention, guided by clarity, fueled by emotion. That's what makes it magnetic. When your actions align with your vision, doors begin to open that logic can't explain. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, not by luck, but by alignment. That's when you realize destiny was never hiding from you. It was waiting for you to match its frequency. And that frequency is created through daily consistency. Every morning you rise early to pursue your dream. You tune your vibration closer to your destiny. Every time you silence doubt and take another step, you turn invisible progress into visible results. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you're writing another line in the story of your becoming. Because destiny doesn't arrive suddenly, it reveals itself gradually. You don't find it one day. You times become times it day by day. That's the secret. Few ever grasp your destiny is not something you chase, it's something you times grow into. Asterisk. And that growth demands sacrifice. You must let go of distractions masquerading as pleasure. You must release the need to be understood by everyone. You must detach from the noise long enough to hear your own intuition. Greatness requires isolation before it commands influence. Edison had his laboratory, Hill had his study, Jobs had his garage. These were not escapes from reality, they were the wombs of transformation. Because when the world is silent, your inner voice gets louder. And that voice, the one that tells you there's more, that you're capable of something greater that's not imagination. That's the whisper of destiny. It calls to those who are willing to listen, but it rewards only those who obey. To turn desire into destiny, you must become obedient to that voice. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of doubt, but the voice of vision. That voice will tell you to start before you're ready, to trust before you see, to believe before it makes sense. And if you obey it long enough, your life will transform beyond recognition. Because obedience to vision is the highest form of faith. When you stop negotiating with your potential and start walking as if you've already arrived, you unlock the power of creation itself. The dream stops being a distant image and starts being your new reality. And when that happens, there's no going back. The person you were dissolves into the person you were meant to be. That is when desire finally becomes destiny. Faith is the invisible force that turns your desire from an idea into a living reality. It is the quiet power behind every miracle of success. Without faith, desire fades. Without faith, vision dies before it's born. You cannot see faith, you cannot measure it, but you can feel times it in the way it refuses to surrender when logic says you should. Faith is the power that made Edison keep going after failure number 9,999. It's what made Lincoln rise from defeat after every loss. It's what made Walt Disney keep drawing when he couldn't afford paper. Faith is not belief without evidence. It's creation through conviction. When you operate in faith, you begin to move as if your dream is already real. You speak differently. You think differently. You carry yourself as though you've already arrived, not because you're pretending, but because you've decided that the outcome is inevitable. And that decision reshapes your energy. The world responds differently to a mind that knows it will win. That's the secret. The greats have always known destiny responds to certainty, not hope. Hope is passive. Faith is active. Hope wishes. Faith works. Hope waits for opportunity. Faith creates it. You don't sit and wait for a sign, you become the sign. Because every time you act in faith, the universe takes a step toward you. Every time you refuse to give in to fear, you shift reality in your favor. It may not happen in an instant, but at times is times happening. Even when you can't see it, you are being shaped, positioned, and refined for what's ahead. There are seasons in life when everything seems silent, when your prayers echo back unanswered, when your work feels unseen, when you wonder if the world has forgotten you. But those are not wasted seasons. They are the cocoon stages of transformation. The caterpillar doesn't see the wings forming, the seed doesn't see the tree it's becoming. And yet transformation is taking place silently, invisibly, inevitably. You are not stuck. You are being strengthened. Faith is not proven in the sunshine, it's proven in the storm. And when you can stand in the storm and say, asterisk, I still believe, asterisk, that's when the universe knows you are ready for flight. Remember, faith and fear both require you to believe in something you cannot see. The only difference is which future you choose to feed. Feed fear and you'll find reasons to quit. Feed faith and you'll find strength to continue. The greatest victories are born out of the darkest nights. When you have faith, you don't pray for an easy road, you pray for the strength to climb the mountain. Because that climb is what shapes you. It forges your character, sharpens your will, deepens your gratitude. And gratitude is the secret multiplier of destiny. Gratitude transforms struggle into strength. It turns obstacles into opportunities. It shifts your energy from lack to abundance. When you are grateful, not just when life is good, but even when it's painful, you open the floodgates for more. Because gratitude is a signal to the universe that you are ready to receive. You can't attract greatness while resenting the process that builds it. You can't hate the grind and love the glory. Everything you seek requires you to love the journey more than the reward. Andrew Carnegie didn't start as an empire builder, he started as a telegraph boy. But instead of despising his humble position, he mastered it. He became the best at what he did, and the world rewarded that mastery with opportunity. Gratitude turns ordinary effort into extraordinary results. So, be grateful for the early mornings, for the challenges, for the lessons disguised as losses. Be grateful for the struggle, because it's proof that you're growing. Every storm carries a seed of strength within it. Every disappointment holds a lesson that will later become your advantage. Nothing is wasted in the life of someone who refuses to give up. Resilience is the art of turning pain into power. The mind that is trained to see opportunity in adversity becomes unstoppable. Because life will not hand you success, it will hand you the situations necessary to times earn times it. Each obstacle you overcome refines your faith. Each challenge conquered deepens your belief. You cannot pray for strength and then complain when life gives you resistance. Resistance times is times the training ground of greatness. It builds the muscle of persistence. Persistence is the heartbeat of destiny. Without persistence, desire fades when the fire cools. Without persistence, faith collapses at the first sign of difficulty. Persistence is when the world says no, and you keep walking anyway. It's when the doors close, and you build a new one. It's when they call you crazy, and you smile, because you've already seen the future they can't imagine. The persistent mind doesn't wait for permission. It creates its own momentum. That's why Napoleon Hill said, asterisk, persistence is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. Asterisk, because persistence hardens your resolve. It transforms you from fragile to unbreakable. When you are persistent, you become immune to temporary defeat. You begin to understand that failure is not a wall, it's a test. Every failure asks one question, asterisk. How badly do you want it? Asterisk. And your answer is not in your words, it's in your continuation. The longer you endure, the more the world bends in your favor. The dream that once seemed distant begins to move closer, not because it changed, but because you did. You elevated your vibration, strengthened your faith, refined your vision. You stopped waiting to feel ready and started acting from certainty. And that's when the invisible forces of success begin to align around you. You'll notice the right people crossing your path, the right ideas appearing at the right time, the sudden breakthroughs that feel like fate. But they're not accidents, they're the result of alignment, discipline, and faith working in harmony. You've tuned your mind to the same frequency as your destiny. That's the true secret of achievement. It's not about chasing, it's about times becoming. Asterisk. The man who becomes success cannot be separated from it. You no longer think about your dream, you embody it. You no longer wish for your purpose, you live it. And the world begins to reflect that identity back to you. Destiny is not something outside of you, it's a reflection of who you are inside. The more you grow, the closer it comes. The more you align, the faster it manifests. So never curse the process, never despise the struggle, never envy another's path, because every trial you face is perfectly designed for your transformation. The universe is not punishing you, it's preparing you. Every delay is divine timing. Every obstacle is sacred instruction. And when you finally rise, when you look back on the mountain you've climbed, you'll realize it was never about the destination. It was always about who you became along the way. That is the true turning of desire into destiny. There comes a moment after the struggle, after the silence, after the storms that once shook your faith, when you finally begin to understand why it all had to happen the way it did. You realize that destiny was never hiding from you. It was shaping you. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour, it was carving away the weakness, the fear, the hesitation that could not survive where you were going. Because destiny cannot exist in the presence of doubt. It can only manifest in the presence of belief. When you finally stop running from the hard parts and start embracing them as sacred steps, something shifts inside you. The weight that once felt unbearable becomes fuel. The challenges that once seemed impossible become proof of your potential. You stop asking, asterisk, why me, asterisk, and start declaring, asterisk, try me, asterisk. That's when you step into mastery not of the world but of yourself. Self-mastery is the final frontier of destiny. The greatest wars are not fought on battlefields, they're fought in the mind. Between the part of you that believes and the part that doubts. Between the voice that says, you can, and the whisper that says, you can't. The masters of destiny learn to silence that inner conflict. They train their minds like athletes. They discipline their emotions like soldiers. They built their lives on the foundation of principle, not preference, because they understood your habits shape your future more than your hopes ever will. Discipline is the highest form of self-love. It is telling yourself no in the moment so that your future can scream yes for the rest of your life. Without discipline, desire is directionless. Without self-mastery, success becomes self-destruction. The man who gains the world but loses himself has not won. He has merely postponed his defeat. But the man who masters his thoughts, his emotions, his time, and his focus, that man is unstoppable. He no longer waits for motivation. He moves from mission. He no longer asks if it will be easy. He asks if it will be worth it. He no longer chases success, he radiates it. That is the difference between desire and destiny. Asterisk, desire wants to possess. Destiny wants to become. Asterisk, desire says, I want it now. Destiny says, I will earn it until I am ready. The weak chase instant results. The strong build eternal impact. The ones who understand this truth no longer compare their journey to others. They realize there is no competition when you are in alignment with your own purpose. Your destiny was written with your name on it. No one can take what belongs to your spirit. No one can live the life you are designed for. But you must claim it not once but daily. Every morning you rise, you are either feeding your future or starving it. Every thought is a seed, every word is a command, every action is a brick in the temple of your becoming. So guard your mind like a sacred garden. Do not allow weeds of doubt or seeds of fear to take root. You are the gatekeeper of your destiny. And when you take control of your inner world, the outer world bends to your will. That is not arrogance, that is universal law. The mind that sees clearly, believes fully, and acts consistently is unstoppable. That's why Napoleon Hill said, asterisk, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Asterisk. Those words were not poetry, they were prophecy. Because when thought and faith unite, creation begins. Everything you desire already exists in the unseen world. You are not creating from nothing, you are tuning yourself to the frequency of what already is. You are the transmitter and receiver of destiny. That's why clarity is power. When you know what you want, the universe knows how to deliver it. But you cannot be vague. You cannot say, I want success, and expect the world to understand. You must define it. You must live it. You must breathe it into every cell of your being. Success is not a location, it's a vibration. And when you raise your vibration through purpose, gratitude, discipline, and faith, success has no choice but to find you, because it was always yours, waiting for you to remember. When you live with that awareness, life transforms from struggle into creation. You stop fighting the current, and you start flowing with it. You realize every obstacle was secretly guiding you closer to alignment. There are no coincidences, only divine precision. And when you finally understand that, fear loses its power. You stop fearing failure because you know failure is feedback. You stop fearing loss because you know what is truly yours can never be taken. You stop fearing the unknown because you trust that the same intelligence that spins the planets also guides your path. Faith becomes your compass. Gratitude becomes your fuel. Purpose becomes your map. And destiny becomes your reality. This is where few ever arrive, the point where your will and the will of the universe are one. You are no longer trying to control life, you are co-creating it. Every thought you think is intentional. Every word you speak carries energy. Every choice you make shapes eternity. You are no longer the dreamer, you are the dream manifested. That is the highest form of success, to live in harmony with the power that created you, to wake up knowing you are not waiting for a miracle, you times are times the miracle. The same energy that built galaxies beats inside your heart. The same intelligence that formed oceans breathes through your mind. You are not small. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are divine potential in human form. And your destiny is not somewhere outside of you. It's the expression of the greatness that's already within you. So stop searching. Start creating. Stop waiting. Start walking. Stop doubting. Start deciding. Because every time you choose faith over fear, every time you take one more step toward your purpose, you move closer to the life that was meant for you all along. The moment you truly decide that there is no plan B, no escape, no retreat, the universe rearranges itself to match that decision. That's when people call it luck. That's when they say, it must be destiny. But destiny was not given. It was times forged. Asterisk. It was shaped by the nights you didn't quit. It was built by the sacrifices no one saw. It was fueled by the fire of belief that refused to die. That is how you turn desire into destiny, not by wishing, but by working, not by waiting, but by walking, not by hoping, but by times becoming. Asterisk. Because destiny is not written in the stars, it's written in your spirit. And when your spirit burns with unwavering faith, no force on earth can stop what was meant to be. So rise not someday, not soon, but times now. Asterisk. Step into the identity your dream requires. Think as the person who has already arrived. Walk as if your purpose depends on it, because it does. And when doubt whispers, when fear returns, when the world grows silent again, smile, because you'll know that silence is not emptiness. It's the sound of destiny listening, waiting for your next command, waiting for your next act of faith, waiting for your next declaration that says, asterisk, I will not quit, I will not settle, I was born for this, asterisk. And the moment you say it not with your mouth but with your movement, everything changes. The world opens, the path clears, the fire returns, because now you are no longer wishing for your destiny. You are times living it. Asterisk. And that, my friend, that is how you turn desire into destiny.